What action did a fellow student express in college that made you realize they lived a very sheltered life? Met this freshman that was really into science, but really had this simple, ignorant and almost childlike idea of what a scientific career actually is. When asked, he just wanted to be a scientist, but he had no idea of the different disciplines. He once said that he wanted to graduate as a scientist to have a house with a lab built on it. It was quite sad, because he legitimately had the interest, but had lack almost all understanding of everything else. He failed almost all his classes on the first year and dropped off. I really don't know what happened to him after that, sadly. You know, putting liquid in different beakers hoping it doesn't explode and get a bunch of ash all over your face and mess up your hair. Not really sheltered, but a guy on my floor freshman year was from Kenya, I think, and had no freaking clue what winter was like. And we proceeded to have a really cold winter that year. Whenever I'd see him head off to class he looked like we was about to go walk on the moon. A girl I know had maids growing up. In a conversation about social privilege and never needing to clean up after herself, she was asked who she thought cleaned up her mates' homes. Her answer? The maids. It's maids all the way down. He wanted to bring weed with him on his trip to Singapore. According to him, dude, no one really cares about weed. I hope you showed him Return to Paradise. And for those who don't know, Singapore has a zero tolerance policy on drugs, and trafficking carries a death sentence while mere possession is only being caned 50 times. My flatmate in first year asked me how to cook pasta. He had never had to make himself food before. Even frying an egg upset him because of how they looked raw. It was entertaining to begin with, but really annoying after about a week. My housemate had the perfect system for making eggs. 1. Fill pot with water. Add raw egg. 2. Put pot on stove. Turn on. Turn heat up all the way. Allow water to get to a hard boil. 3. Leave. 4. Return when all the water is completely boiled away. 5. Ignore housemates who are telling you you're an idiot. A girl in my creative writing class got extremely upset because I said "god dang" out loud. She corrected me, jokingly, so I thought, and told me to never say "god dang" again. So I playfully did and found out she was in fact dead serious and super religious. She stormed off and avoided me for the next couple of months. For our final assignment, we had to write a story about an event that had deeply impacted our personal lives. She wrote hers about me. God dang. This is sweet in a weird twisted way. Like, she cared about you, man. Maybe she was even attracted to you. And there you were, taking her Lord's name in vain. On a school trip, a seemingly normal kid bought a €300 shirt on a whim and then wondered why we were rather shocked. My freshman year, one of my roommates, named Kenny, had his mom come up every weekend for the first month to do his laundry for him. When we did our first major cleanup of the apartment, the four of us took different tasks. I cleaned the counters and dishes. One took the 2 bathrooms, one took the living room. All Kenny had to do was vacuum the hallway and take a broom to the kitchen floor. He asked where the broom was and I said in the closet. He walked in and grabbed the Swiffer we had and started to try and use it. Kenny, if you are going to use that, it needs a pad. It doesn't need a pad, it's a broom. Kenny, that's a Swiffer. You need pads for them. We don't have any yet. Use the broom. We don't have a broom. I then walk over to the closet, grab the broom and give it to him. Instead of sweeping it all into a corner, he just started basically flinging the dirt everywhere. My other 2 roommates and I just stare at him wondering what he's doing. Kenny, that's not cleaning the floor. That's moving the dirt around. No, that's how they do it on TV. Kenny, have you never used a broom before? No, I never had to clean anything. At that point, our roommate's friend just grabbed the thing and started sweeping for him. This girl I knew was so sweet and fun, but she thought everyone in the world was Christian. It wasn't that she didn't know other faiths existed. She just figured everyone shared her beliefs, which were very, very conservative. Not bashing those beliefs, by the way, to each her own. Anyway, one day we were talking about our studies, etc. And she told me it was good that I was going into my field because we need more Christians doing God's work in that field. I informed her I was raised Buddhist and was not Christian. She also tried to make me watch Christian movies and told me anyone who didn't have a Christian wedding ceremony wasn't really married, which would include my parents. I mentioned my parents' Buddhist ceremony and she finally conceded to the fact that they could possibly be legally married. I had a friend that commuted because their parents wouldn't let them dorm. My roommate and I were watching some crappy TV show and our friend came over. We muted it and ad-libbed over the actors cause we were bored. We weren't even that into it. Our friend was having the time of his life though. He brought up that day for months afterwards. I don't think he got out much. That's quite sweet really. Poor guy. Didn't know how to do laundry or completely unable to budget their money. Things like that. The funniest one was a girl who turned around to ask me what a strap-on was in the middle of class. Then she gasped very loudly when I explained what it was. Heard an American say that the Syrian refugees wouldn't need to move if they had guns. One of my housemates was the daughter of a Pakistani multi-millionaire. She was in the middle of suddenly having to be a grown-up after a life where everything was done for her, which made her frustrating to live with to be honest. Girl was a ball of emotional problems, alcoholism, and self-worth directly tied to how much money her father had. I overheard her talking to our housemate about how after she'd had to go to a public school for a month or so after leaving Pakistan, she apparently didn't like the other students, saying I realized, you know, I was just better than them. Upon not being able to get whipped cream on her mocha at the local coffee place. What do they think I am, middle class? Once, when we were all settling in to watch House or whatever, she took off her socks. Girl had the longest toenails I'd ever seen. These suckers were Howard Hughes long. Naturally we asked what the frick was up with that. She said she couldn't cut them. Just straight up could not. We pressed her about this until she shouted, but I always had a maid do it. It took everyone else in the house to explain that her nails were going to snap off in her dang shoes if she didn't do something about it. She had to borrow my nail clippers because she didn't own any. Eating breakfast with some friends in the cafeteria. I don't put milk in my cereal because my mom told me it dilutes the nutritional value. Facepum. I was the sheltered one. I grew up in a house in the woods with a mother who was the nicest person possible but also a strong anti-pot, anti-television teetotaler. She dropped the ball on sex education as well. I hung out with the nerdy, highly ambitious kids in high school, so we never really talked about sex and we all graduated without having dated or got as far as even kissing anyone. So I went off to university, a province away from my hometown, and took up residence in the dorms. Within the first month I got to pretend I was asleep while my lascivious roommate had sex in our shared dorm room, had my first, incredibly awkward, kiss, and learned who Chuck Norris was. This was at the tail end of his memedom, so he was a popular topic. Up to this point I actually didn't really know how sex worked even, beyond a vague inkling of the mechanics. One of the first nights I was there I attended a toga party in a desperate attempt to make a connection with the strange people around me. I met a nice guy and we chatted outside for a few hours, listening to the din from the dorms. I realize now that he was trying to hook up with me, but at the time I was blithely oblivious and just glad to have someone to talk to. This was the first of many times that I completely overlooked someone flirting with me. I did make some friends, but they were pop culture nerds and I was completely unable to understand most of their jokes and references. I remember a long string of jokes being made about Scientology, and I laughed and nodded, pretending that I had a clue what they were referring to. Does this have something to do with science? I wondered. A religion based around science, perhaps? That sounds right up my alley. Wonder why these guys are making fun of it. Not knowing how to check out at the grocery store. This was the same kid who had never pumped gas before, but we'll allow that one because he was from NJ. I've only lived in NJ for 3 years and I already hesitate every time I pull into a gas station over a bridge. I imagine in a few more years I'll have forgotten altogether and will just end up stranded at a Shell in Delaware for eternity. Not in school, but in boot camp for the Navy. All the bullet wounds on the inner city guys. I never knew anyone who had gotten shot before. Suddenly I realize I'm showering with a bunch of dudes who had taken multiple bullets. Too many people who didn't know how to use the laundry machines. So very many of them. An internet friend of mine when I was in my teens had gone to college, but he wasn't sure how to operate the washer and dryer in his dorm. He ended up running back and forth between his room and the laundry to draw Ms. Paint pictures of the knobs on the machines to send me, so I could try and decipher them. After some troubleshooting, we got his laundry started. Mid-college political science class, so only for people who were majoring or minoring in political science history. A girl in class had never heard of the Cuban Missile Crisis. The teacher tried to explain that it was during the Cold War. She'd never heard of that either. Another class, one of the girls asked the teacher to cancel our final because it was her 21st birthday. She was dead serious and threw a fit when he basically laughed at her. Dorm floor girl was caught putting dryer sheets in the lint trap. So in the beginning of my freshman year, my roommate and I walked about a mile with this girl from our floor to go get ice cream. She said the whole way there and back that it was the craziest thing she had ever done and her mom wouldn't believe how crazy it was. Mind you, she was a sophomore. Haha, what an absolute madman. This girl from Central Africa piped up during a conversation on ethnic political divisions along class lines in a lecture. She explained how it was all ludicrous, because growing up her driver was one of those ethnic groups and she was the other, and we were very amicable. She had just been so sheltered in her home country, and thought that everyone loved everyone. In a discussion of racial stereotypes and prejudice, one girl raised her hand and said that people often make hurtful assumptions about her just because she was majoring in theater. Most of us managed to keep a straight face, but one girl had to excuse herself and we could hear her cackling in the hallway. That's not sheltered, that's just a drama major. Seeing as I was the sheltered dude, for me it was a complete lack of self-awareness. Understanding how the things I was saying were annoying as crap. I was loud as heck but didn't really comprehend it. Luckily my niceness was enough to compensate and get me friends, but goddang would I have kicked my own ass if I could travel back to those days. I am aware of the feeling, though I know I wasn't the worst. I also know that in 10 years I'm going to think the same thing about today that I did about past me. So I'm not sure if it's that I was ignorant and sheltered or if I just constantly look back at myself as an idiot. I knew multiple people who didn't understand how microwaves worked. The first week of living on their floor in the dorms was interesting. No, Hannah, spoons don't go in the microwave. Yes, Rachel, you can put a paper towel in the microwave. It won't catch fire. Your pasta needs water. Michael OMFG, what are you doing? Etc. This sounds familiar. A lad on the floor above me in my first week at university didn't realize that tins shouldn't go into the microwave until it went boom in his face. I'm glad you asked. My professor made a grown-ass man cry in class by giving him an existential crisis, and some random dude revolted against the treatment of his classmates by, I kid you not, standing up and crapping on the floor. I am 36 years old and it was the best day of my life. That got swifty quickly. A girl on my college course has never had a cup of tea, coffee, hot chocolate, or any carbonated product. She's 19. Considering we're English, this disgusts me so much. Not one person necessarily, but the general wastefulness of people who have never had financial restrictions. For example, the people who buy new furniture for their dorm room or shared house and then just toss it at the end of the year. I love those people. Got a leather lover seat and Ottoman 1 year, a 60-inch TV another. You have been spotted by the rare flying floofer. If you comment good boy below, he won't steal your hot dogs anymore. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check out another video, or don't. Either way, have a great day you magnificent people.